So, the agenda. So, today we'll be discussing interviewing best practices, social media sourcing, and salary history bands. So, interviewing best practices. So, the main thing HR always has to do is be consistent, right? We're all about being fair and having consistent business practices, right? So we always have to make sure we ask our applicants, regardless of race, gender, age, etc., the same questions about jobs, performance, relevant qualifications. You want to always make sure that you're educated as the recruiter or hiring manager to make sure you understand the job responsibilities for the positions you're hiring for. So you want to make sure you know what the employees in the current role do day to day. Let's make sure you're not overselling the position in which you're hiring for. Because I think it's very important to make sure you're transparent when you're interviewing and make sure you set the right expectations for the role, because you don't want to waste that candidate's time and you definitely don't want to waste your time. So you want to make sure it's a perfect fit for both people. So for the business and also for the candidate. So you want to make sure you're setting great expectations for is what the day to day job looks like and the expectation for their roles. Because so many times people get positions and sometimes they'll say, oh, well, when I interviewed, this wasn't explained to me or no one told me this, or I thought I could have every weekend off, or different things like that. So you want to make sure you're setting the right expectation for the candidates. Make sure you don't make promises of job security or any other guarantees. So some examples of that may be um, the person may be interested in being a manager with your company, but this is a entry level position. So don't say to them, after a year or two, we probably can make you a manager. Those different types of promises. You don't want to make sure you want to stay away from different things like that. You definitely want to make sure you're encouraging promotion within your company and, growth, but you don't want to set those, say things like that that could cause the candidate to think that they're going to move up in a company quicker than they actually are or could be. That's the hope, of course, but make sure you're not making any promises for us that position. Some things you can ask are you capable of performing a position's essential job functions with or without accommodations? Can you meet the attendance requirements of this job? This job requires long hours and weekends. Are you able to do that? Those are very vital questions to everyone's jobs. This is where the transparency comes into place. We want to make sure we know about any disabilities up front. So you know the expectation for is accommodating that employee. This is their opportunity to share that information based off of the questions you ask. They can share and let you know if they have some type of disability, because you may say the job requires that you have to lift 20 pounds. Are they capable of lifting 20 pounds for this position? If there's travel involved, you want to make sure you set expectations for that. So you would want to ask, this position, you may want to say this position requires 25% travel around the DMV area. Are you okay with that? So make sure you're setting those expectations by asking those questions. Some things you shouldn't ask are, do you have a disability? Do you have any previous major medical problems? This all can lead to discrimination or being considered discriminatory towards the candidate. This is definitely a violation of ADA to ask those questions. So you always want to make sure you're sticking to the job description and the responsibilities that come along with the job versus asking someone, do you have a disability? How many days were you sick last year? That's something you should never ask. Never ask about prescription drugs. Have you ever been treated for alcoholism or mental health problems? So make sure you're staying away from those things, as these can violate ADA. As it comes to disabilities, you could violate age and birth through that also. Let's talk about social media sourcing. So, most of us have LinkedIn profiles, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter. We have all these ways of finding out information about people before they even begin to start working for us. So let's get into some ways we judge other people in regards to what we see on those profiles and what to look for and what we shouldn't look for, so we can make sure that we're in compliance with everything. So be careful not to use social media as a way of disqualifying someone for a position. Example, protected class. On these profiles, you can see sometimes people's ages, what year they graduated from high school. So make sure you keep a web-based hiring decision mentality. So be very open-minded when you're looking at profiles. Try not to assume the worst about someone based off of certain things that you see on their profile. Doing those type of things can lead to litigation if someone found out you used Facebook to disqualify them for a position because you saw that they were drinking, beer with their friends, or you saw a gun. One of their friends that they were friends with had a profile picture of a gun, so you thought that they may be a violent person or something, or associated with violent people. So you want to make sure you stay away from those types of things. So make sure you keep an open mind as it comes to social media and what you're looking for. If someone were to find out and litigation start, it could be a big backlash from the community. You can lose business because of it. People are really big on being socially responsible in 2019. So it's all over the news in regards to someone, whether you intentionally did it or didn't intentionally do it. Sometimes things can backfire on organizations based off of things that people internally do or decide to say and put out there. So be very mindful of that. So here is a Facebook profile. So I want you guys to take the time to look at this. Um, and let's look for certain things that we may use against the candidate. What information can we find out from this profile about Brian James? So we see that he's from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. His interests are entrepreneurship. He's interested in startups, technology, innovation, business. So someone may say, as a recruiter or hiring manager, if you're looking up Brian James, you may say, well, he applied for a IT position, but he says his interests are entrepreneurship. So maybe he won't stay with the company long if we were to hire him. Maybe he wants to go ahead and start his own business within the next few years. So he probably wouldn't stay with the company long enough. So those are certain things that people, as recruiters, we may judge candidates based off of something like that and may disqualify them for that. So be mindful of that. He has a favorite quote on here. It says, "Buy local and drink good beer." A recruiter or hiring manager may read that statement and assume he's an alcoholic. But is that a fair judgment of Brian James? He may just like to have a good time with his friends, and there's nothing wrong with him drinking occasionally if that's what he wants to do. So we can't be critical of everything that we see and read on social media profiles. His About Me says he grew up in Philly. He has since made the switch to Harrisburg and he's loving it. I'm constantly surprised about how much is going on here. So that's a positive quote that you can take away. He has some websites listed here. His profile picture doesn't give much insight as to, who he is. It's very basic. You can see his friends, so sometimes people look at your friends to see who you're affiliated with. And I wouldn't judge people critically off of that because with social media, sometimes people just friend everyone that sends them a friend request. They're not necessarily associated with these people. They just know everyone that sends them a friend request and they just accept whether they know them or not. They may just accept the friend request. So let's not judge others based off of the friends they have listed on social media also. What's some other takeaways we can find on here? Uh, he has his education and work. So he says he works for Harrisburg Market Keystone Innovation Zone. So that may be something that you can use to see if that's where he's currently employed. That may be information that you can actually use as a recruiter or hiring manager. because that's something that can be factual. You can verify if he actually works for that organization or not. If his resume says he currently works for that organization, then that may validate, what he put on there. So, his profile is very basic, but some people may give more information on their profile. So, a lot of people have their photos on there so you can see what race they are, what gender they are. You can find out if they have kids or not, if they're married, if they have spouses. All these things most people have available on where you can actually view it. So, those are things we shouldn't judge other people by. Don't assume because someone on their profile picture they have kids that they may have a babysitting issue. These are the type of things people get in trouble with recruiting and HR side because they're being critical of people or assuming certain things based off of profiles on social media. So let's talk about some best practices around social media to make sure we're compliant and we're treating everyone with fair and consistent practices. Let's develop guidelines as to what type of information would be considered disqualifying and why. Develop a protocol as a company to determine if you will or will not use social media to disqualify someone. If you choose to do so, what social media sites will be used? Run searches consistently for all candidates for a given position. So when you run searches as a company, you should come up with some type of policy to say, okay, we're going to check all of our candidates' Facebook page. We're going to check all their Instagram pages to see what information we can find. Or if you want to Google someone, you can say, we're going to Google everyone to see what information we can find. But whatever it is, it should be consistent for all people. So you shouldn't just Google Martine DeVoe and then the next candidate that you come across, you don't Google that person. You just check out their Twitter page. So if you guys as a company decide to, or as a recruiter decide to check for Twitter and Instagram, then those should be the two you consistently check for everyone. If search results are damaging to the candidate, then what? So what policy are you going to have in place to say what is disqualifying? So you need to come up with a policy for that also to say when you do find certain information, what information should I disregard? What information did I find that was alarming to me that makes me want to disqualify this candidate? So you want to make sure that it's something legitimate and that it's something that's factual if you want to, disqualify someone based off of something you saw on their social media page. If you have any questions about this, I always recommend reaching out to your HR department if in doubt about breaking any laws. The hiring manager should retain search results with the application also. So this also gives the organization information showing that you're consistently following the same practices for all of your candidates. So it's great if you can keep a copy of those things with the application so you can show consistency. Let's say if you were to be accused of discriminating against someone based off of social media information that you found, you can show that you consistently do the same process for all of your candidates. So next, let's get into the salary history bans. A lot of people are not familiar with salary history ban laws. So the main reason salary history bans came into play was for equal pay. So to make sure men and women receive equal pay for similar work. So that's very important, especially in 2019. A lot of organizations are trying to move towards 100% equality across the board for us how everyone is being paid. So whether I'm a male, female, African American, white, Native American, Chinese, whatever my race may be, if I have the same education, the same amount of years for its work experience, you should hire me at the same rate that you would pay a man or a woman or whatever. So a lot of companies are trying to make sure that they're in compliance with that, and they want to be on the right side of history for us what they're doing. As a company, they want to be socially responsible and making sure that everyone is paid equally and fairly. So let's get into the history of salary bans. So it started in 2017. So several cities and states have implemented the salary history bans. So there's certain things you shouldn't ask a candidate in those particular cities and states that have these laws. Some of those things are, what are you currently earning? What have you earned in your previous jobs? So you want to make sure you're staying away from those questions, because if they reveal that information to you, then you may want to not pay them what you were expected to pay them. So, for example, if someone interviewed for your company and it was for, let's say, a recruiter position, you're recruiting, you're looking for another recruiter. Let's say that person told you they made $80,000 currently, but you knew your current position you were budgeted for was for 115 to 120,000. Right? So you don't want to hire that person at 90 if you know that the position was budgeted for 115,000. Just because they're making 80 doesn't mean that you should only give them a $10,000 increase, because the hiring is based off of the work experience, and also is based off the level of work they're going to be doing for your organization, and you guys have already budgeted for that particular role. So you want to make sure you stay away from those questions. So far, we have 12 jurisdictions have passed the laws in their county. So the timeline, it shows currently active. We have Puerto Rico, Albany, New York, Oregon, Philly, New York City, Delaware, California, Massachusetts, San Francisco, and Westchester County, New York, Connecticut, and California. So coming on board soon with this new law is going to be Suffolk County in New York also. So some candidates voluntarily disclose certain information without you even asking them for that information, right? So we learn a lot about our candidates through just regular conversation. So a lot of times you don't even have to ask certain questions. They automatically offer that information to you. If an applicant voluntarily offers salary history information, that's okay. Recruiting and hiring managers should document candidate offered that information, though. You want to make sure that that's documented, that they provided it to you, and that you didn't ask it if you're in one of these states for his hiring. Delaware, Albany, New York, and Oregon, beginning January of this year, says that even if they voluntarily provide this information, you should not factor it in your hiring decision. Some states forbid employers from relying on prior salary to justify the differences in pay. So even if they voluntarily give you that information, you're basically supposed to act like you didn't even receive that information. So they don't even want you to factor it in your hiring processes or how much you're going to offer them if this is the candidate you want to move forward with. Here we have a map showing federal court split over salary history under Federal Equal Pay Act. So the ones in green are the ones that the use of prior salary standing alone does justify salary disparity. So those states in the green have a big issue with salary disparity. The ones in blue, the use of prior salary standing alone does not justify a salary disparity. So, oh, sorry. So it shows you basically how we are as a country, where we stand with the salary history laws, and what states are proactively implementing these new laws. So I would consider the ones who are implementing it to be doing something that's considered unorthodox right now, because a lot of states still haven't gotten on board with it. So I think they're moving in the right direction as a state. So you can kind of see regionally who's moving in the right direction for us, making sure they have these salary history bands in place to make sure there's equal pay for everyone. So let's recap some things for us handling voluntarily disclosed information. Some dues are: inform the candidate that anything they disclose may be subject to verification. Everywhere you record the disclosed compensation information, note that the information was disclosed voluntarily and without prompting. So remember, again, document and also save those applications showing, for the social media that you consistently check it for the same information. So it's good to have those things so you can keep those with the employees' files once they start with your organization. Some don'ts. Make sure you screen candidates or show preference. Make sure you don't screen candidates or show preference to any candidate based on what was disclosed. Offer the candidate different compensation based solely on the compensation information disclosed. Don't provide this information to the hiring manager. So we want to make sure we're following these don'ts. Um, and that does it for our presentation today. So right now, I'll take Q&A from you guys if you have any questions you want to ask me in regards to the presentation. Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll go ahead and move on to the end of the presentation. If you have any questions for us, guys, you can always email us at info@excelhr.com. We have some exciting information to share with you about our 401k basics webinar. So that's great information if you're a small business owner, if you want to learn more information in regards to 401k plans for your employees, how to go about setting those things up. We do have a free webinar coming up in August for that. We also have a free HR audit that's going on currently. So you would actually be partnered with someone like myself, who's the HR generalist here, and we would actually do an audit for you. So if you have certain practices you have for recruiting or interviewing, you want someone to look over those practices to make sure you're in compliance, feel free to sign up for our free HR audit. You can find out about that at excelhr.com/HR audit. We also have a free 21-day trial to take the hassle out of hiring with Jazz HR. So if you're a recruiter, if you ever work with the applicant tracking system, it's awesome. Jazz HR is very user friendly. So we have a 21-day free trial if you guys are interested in trying it. If you've never used the applicant tracking system before, or ATS, this would be a great opportunity for you to see what you're missing out on. Because on the recruiting side, applicant tracking systems are very useful for its organizing your hiring, being able to delegate certain candidates to other hiring managers to review, creating offer letters. There's a hiring process built into it. It's also associated with, normally they're associated with all the social media hiring search engines. So for as like LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, all those are tied to it. So if you have ATS, you can actually just post a job for one place and it automatically posts for all of those sites for you. So they're very user friendly. Also, we have 50% off recruiting and staffing services. So we have some great recruiters in-house who can help you as a business owner or organization. If you need assistance with recruiting and staffing, we can help you guys with that. And after this webinar is over, we're going to send you guys an email in regards to the presentation. So give us some feedback on how you thought the presentation went today. So there is some incentive to complete it. So you will be included for a prize. So go ahead and take the time to do that. It should only take 1 to 2 minutes of your time. And for any more information on any of our webinars or future webinars, you can always follow us on all these social media sites: LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And that's it for our session today. So I hope you guys enjoyed it and you enjoy the rest of your day.